The dense jungle stretched endlessly, its towering trees glowing faintly under the dim light of twin moons. The air was thick with humidity, carrying the scent of damp earth and something metallic. A low hum vibrated through the atmosphere, subtle, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable to those who knew what to listen for. The expedition team moved cautiously, their sleek, chitin-like armor blending with the alien foliage. They weren't supposed to be here. This planet, designated K712, was on every interstellar map as a red zone, off-limits, uncharted, and highly dangerous. Yet, Curator Vyrl, the mission commander, had chosen to defy that warning. He adjusted the holographic visor on his face, scanning the area. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, yet the mission demanded otherwise. They were here to study the apex predator, a creature so efficient, so intelligent, that even the most advanced alien civilizations avoided this world entirely. This planet's dominant species did not use technology. It did not build cities. It did not form alliances. It only killed. Vyrl had seen the reports. Every organism that set foot on this jungle world vanished without a trace. Not a single scout had returned. No corpses. No distress signals. Just silence. And now, here they were, violating every safety protocol in existence. A sudden movement. Vyrl raised a hand, signaling his team to stop. The other 5 members of the Xyrix Research Division froze, their exoskeleton armor shifting into adaptive camouflage. The undergrowth ahead rustled. Then, they heard it. A deep, wet, visceral tearing sound. Vyrl's breath hitched. Something, or someone, was feeding. He gestured for RYYK, the team's stealth expert, to advance. RYYK moved forward, vanishing into the shadows, his advanced cloak bending light around him. Seconds stretched into an eternity as Vyrl watched the scanner feed on his HUD. Then, a sudden spike in biological activity. RYYK's heart rate skyrocketed. A message flashed on Vyrl's visor, hastily typed by RYYK. "Sir. You need to see this." Vyrl moved forward, keeping low, his breath controlled. His 4 remaining team members followed. When they reached the clearing, every fiber of their being screamed to run. A lone human sat on a large rock, hunched over a fresh carcass. The sight itself wasn't the problem. The problem was what he was eating. The corpse beneath him belonged to the apex predator. The same creature that had single-handedly wiped out every previous exploration attempt. And yet, this bare-skinned, armorless, technology-deprived human was casually tearing into its flesh with his teeth. No weapons. No tools. Just bare hands and teeth. Blood covered his face, dripping down his chin as he chewed. His eyes flicked up, scanning the jungle, as if he already knew they were there. A chill shot down Vyrl's spine. This was impossible. Humans weren't supposed to be here. Hell, humans weren't even capable of being here. According to every known database, humanity was a failed species, too weak to thrive in galactic society, too fragile to adapt to hostile worlds. And yet, here one was. Not just surviving, but thriving. The human ripped another chunk of meat free, chewing lazily, his expression unreadable. Then, he smiled. "Analysis," Vyrl hissed, trying to keep his voice steady. The team's medic, Liar VA, struggled to speak. I don't understand, Commander. His vitals are." She trailed off, her 4 eyes wide with disbelief. "They're impossible." Vyrl's HUD flickered as Liar VA streamed the biological readings to him. Species, Homo sapiens. Biological status, alive. Adaptation rate, error, data unreadable. Threat level, unknown. Unknown? That wasn't possible. Every species had a threat level, calculated based on biological endurance, intelligence, and combat efficiency. Humans had always ranked at the lowest tier. And yet, the system couldn't even categorize this one. Then, the human spoke. "You should leave." His voice was calm. Controlled. He wiped the blood from his chin and slowly stood. His movements were unhurried, as if he had all the time in the world. Vyaril instinctively raised his weapon. "Identify yourself." The human tilted his head, amused. "Why?" Vyaril hesitated. Why? He didn't know. This human shouldn't even exist. The human took a step forward. The ground crunched beneath his bare feet. "You think I'm your enemy?" He glanced at the alien weapons pointed at him. "I'm not." Vyaril narrowed his eyes. "Then what are you?" The human exhaled, gaze distant. Then, softly, almost regretfully, he whispered. "I am what they tried to erase." A cold weight settled in Vyril's chest. They? Before he could speak, the jungle screamed. A second apex predator burst from the undergrowth, lunging at the human with impossible speed. Vril barely had time to react. Yet the human? He moved first. In an instant, he sidestepped the incoming attack, his hands gripping the creature's throat with raw, brutal strength. The apex predator, a monster twice his size, thrashed wildly, razor-sharp claws slashing at his body. But the human didn't flinch. Then, with a sickening crack, he twisted the beast's neck, snapping its spine like dry wood. Silence. The body hit the ground, lifeless. Vyril's team stood frozen, their minds unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The human rolled his shoulders and exhaled. "I warned you." Vyril's grip on his weapon tightened. This wasn't just an anomaly. This was something worse. Then, his visor pinged with an incoming transmission. A distress call from orbit. "Urgent priority transmission, Galactic Authority. Alert, unidentified human presence confirmed. High Command response team en route." Vyril's blood ran cold. They had been detected. And the Galactic authorities were already coming. The team is forced to make a decision, capture the human or flee before the High Command arrives. But deep down, Vril knows, they are already too late. A heavy silence hung over the jungle clearing. The human stood motionless, his hands still slick with the blood of the creature he had just killed with nothing but brute force. His gaze remained steady, calm, as if none of this was surprising to him. Vril and his team, however, could not say the same. "Commander," Lyra whispered through the encrypted team channel, her voice shaking. That should not be possible." Vril didn't respond. His four-fingered hand tightened around his plasma rifle, though he knew it wouldn't matter. Even if he gave the order to fire, he wasn't sure it would do anything. The human had killed an apex predator with his bare hands. He had done so with no armor, no weapons, no external enhancements. And now, the Galactic Authority knew he was here. Their orders would be clear: eliminate the anomaly. Vril swallowed. His instincts screamed at him to retreat, to get off this world before the situation escalated. But deep inside, he knew there was no turning back. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about the truth. The mission just changed. A new message flashed across Vril's visor. Priority update from High Command. All witnesses must remain until secured. Vril exhaled sharply. They were being locked in. No extraction. No retreat. That left them with two choices: capture the human or be labeled as accomplices. He took a slow step forward. Identify yourself. The human tilted his head. I already told you, that won't change anything. VYRL's second-in-command, KelVA, let out a low growl. You are not supposed to exist. Humans are extinct. The last confirmed sighting of your species was over 300 cycles ago. The human's lips curled slightly. Is that what they told you? VYRL felt something cold settle in his chest. What do you mean? The human exhaled, as if debating whether to answer. Then, he simply said, your history is a lie. The weight of those words made VYRL's stomach twist. Explain. The human looked at him, really looked at him. His eyes were unnervingly sharp, as if he could see right through the alien commander's carefully trained discipline. Finally, the human spoke. How do you think your species got here? VYRL blinked, caught off guard. What? The human gestured around them, toward the dense jungle, the towering trees, the very planet itself. How did the Xyrix Empire come to rule over 50 systems? How did your kind reach the stars? VYRL bristled. Through evolution. Through intelligence and discipline. We built our empire, just as every dominant species does. The human gave a slow, knowing nod. Right. Because that's what they told you. VYRL's fingers tightened around his weapon. Enough riddles. If you have something to say, say it. The human sighed. All right. Then, he lifted his hand. VYRL's eyes widened in horror as his biological scanner went wild. The human's body temperature dropped. His muscle density spiked. His nervous system accelerated beyond recorded limits. And then, his DNA signature changed. VYRL's HUD flashed an error. Warning, genetic classification error. Then, the impossible happened. The scanner recalibrated. A new species classification appeared on his visor. Species, Homo sapiens, primary ancestral lineage. VYRL's breath caught. Ancestral lineage? His mind raced. It wasn't possible. Xyrix biology had been mapped for centuries. Their genetic markers were unique, their evolutionary history well documented. And yet, this scanner was saying that humans were their ancestors. That was impossible. And yet, the human's unreadable expression suggested otherwise. VYRL felt his world shift. You're lying, KelVA snapped. The human wiped his bloodied hand against his tattered pants. Am I? VYRL tried to force his mind into order. No. There had to be another explanation. The scanner had to be wrong. And yet, some part of him already knew the truth. You are not the anomaly here, the human murmured. You are the result of one. A decision must be made. VYRL knew they were running out of time. The Galactic Authority wouldn't wait for their report. They would land with full force, erase the human, and likely erase any evidence he ever existed. That left VYRL with an impossible choice. Follow orders and eliminate the human. Or betray the authority and uncover the truth. His team was waiting. Watching. He could feel their unease. Their fear. Finally, he made his decision. He turned to his team. Secure him. KelVA's jaw tightened. You can't be serious. That is an order. The team hesitated, then moved. The human didn't resist. He let them activate the restraint field around him, the blue energy locking him in place. But before they could even take a step, the jungle shook. A distant thunderous roar echoed through the air. VYRL's heart dropped. He tapped into the team's ship scanner. The orbital feed came through. His stomach twisted. They're here. The Galactic Authority fleet had arrived. The Galactic Authority has arrived, and they will not let the human live. Vyril and his team now face an impossible decision: hand over the human or escape with him. The human, still calm, smirks. Looks like your masters have arrived. What will you do now? The jungle trembled. Vyril's HUD lit up with a warning. Galactic Authority landing crafts detected. Time to ground impact, 90 seconds. His mind raced. They weren't supposed to arrive this fast. Standard procedure dictated an orbital sweep, reconnaissance drones, and a secure landing zone. Instead, they were deploying immediately. Which meant one thing. They already knew. Vyril turned to his team. Move. Now. Kelvier hesitated. Commander. I said move. No one argued after that. The jungle exploded into motion. Vyril's team spread out in formation, activating their cloaking fields and breaking into a full sprint. The human, still bound in the restraint field, was carried by Lyervier and Kelvier, their enhanced strength keeping pace even under the extra weight. The human, despite his situation, remained eerily calm. You're making a mistake, he said, his voice steady even as the team ran. Vyril didn't look at him. You're the mistake, he shot back. The human chuckled. If that were true, they wouldn't be in such a rush to kill me. Vyril grit his teeth. He didn't have time for this. They needed to reach the extraction site before the Galactic Authority did. If they failed, they wouldn't just lose the human. They'd lose their lives too. A sky on fire. Above them, the sky burned. The Galactic Authority's landing crafts pierced the upper atmosphere like falling stars, their engines leaving trails of plasma in their wake. Vyril's visor calculated their descent trajectories. Too many. Too fast. This wasn't just an extraction mission. It was a purge. He tapped into the encrypted comms. VAR, we need immediate pickup at Point Theta. The pilot's response came instantly. Negative, Commander. Authority ships are already in our airspace, I can't get close without being spotted. Vyril cursed. Then find another way. No response. Just silence. Then. Understood. You have 5 minutes. Don't be late. The forest is watching. The deeper they ran, the more the jungle changed. The air grew thick, humid. Shadows stretched unnaturally between the massive trees, their trunks covered in bioluminescent veins that pulsed like a heartbeat. The usual insect chatter vanished. Something was wrong. Vyril slowed his pace, signaling his team to do the same. Lyervier's breathing was sharp. Sir, scanners are picking up something. Movement all around us, but no life signatures. Kelvier adjusted his grip on the human. Stealth drones? The human spoke before Vyril could answer. No. Not drones. They all turned to him. The jungle doesn't like visitors. And as if on cue, the ground shifted. Vyril barely had time to react before the earth beneath them collapsed. The abyss below. Vyril hit the ground hard. His visor glitched momentarily before stabilizing. His body ached, but nothing was broken. Around him, his team groaned as they pulled themselves upright. They had fallen into a massive underground cavern. Walls of smooth, obsidian-like rock stretched high above them, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. Lyervier scanned the area. Commander, this isn't a natural formation. Vyril already knew. It was too perfect. Too symmetrical. Kelvier exhaled sharply. A structure? Vyril nodded. An ancient one. The human, still restrained, looked around with mild interest. You weren't supposed to see this. Vyaril turned sharply. Explain. The human smiled. Later. Right now, you should worry about them. A deep, guttural growl echoed through the cavern. Vyaril froze. Slowly, he turned his head. And saw them. At first, they looked like shadows, dark figures shifting unnaturally against the cavern walls. But then they moved into the light. Towering creatures, their elongated limbs covered in obsidian plating, eyes glowing like burning coals. Predators. Ancient ones. And they were hungry. Lyerva whispered. Sir, orders. Vyaril tightened his grip on his weapon. Above them, the distant roar of Galactic Authority dropships grew louder. Below them, the creatures advanced. And at the center of it all, the human just grinned. Now, he said, things get interesting. The team is trapped in an ancient underground ruin with hostile creatures. The Galactic Authority is moments away from finding them. The human seems completely unbothered. What does he know? The cavern trembled. Vyaril's team was caught between two nightmares. Above them, the Galactic Authority was closing in. The hum of their dropships vibrated through the rock, their searchlights sweeping the jungle canopy, looking for anything out of place. They would find the crater soon. Below them, the creatures stirred. They moved in eerie silence, massive, obsidian-plated beasts with glowing red eyes that burned like molten cores. Their limbs were too long, their movements too smooth, as if gravity meant nothing to them. And they were watching. Waiting. Hunting. Vyaril raised his plasma rifle, his team following suit. But deep down, he knew weapons wouldn't matter. Kelvier's voice was tight. Commander, what are these things? The human, still bound in the restraint field, chuckled. You don't want the answer to that. Vyaril didn't take his eyes off the creatures. Now is not the time for riddles, human. Fine, the human said, his tone casual despite the death closing in around them. They were here before your kind. And mine. The air turned ice cold. Kelvier's fingers twitched on his trigger. Impossible. There is no recorded species older than. The human smirked. Then what your empire tells you? Open your eyes, Commander. Vyaril didn't have time to argue. The creatures were moving. One stepped forward, its claws scraping against the stone, producing a sound that sent a sharp, involuntary shiver through his entire body. A biological fear response. Whatever these things were. They weren't meant to be seen. The first attack. It happened fast. The nearest creature lunged, a blur of shifting darkness and gleaming talons. Vyaril barely had time to react before it was on top of him. His instincts kicked in. He rolled left, plasma rifle snapping up, and fired point blank. The bolt hit, but didn't penetrate. Instead, the energy bent around the creature's body, warping and dispersing into nothing. Vyaril's breath caught. That was impossible. The creature struck. Fast. Precise. A claw slashed through his armor like it was paper. A sharp pain tore through his side, but before it could finish the attack, a loud explosion ripped through the cavern. Kelvier had thrown a pulse grenade. The creature was sent flying back, crashing into the others. They didn't roar in pain. They didn't make a sound at all. They just turned. And now, they were all moving. Lyerva's voice shook. Sir, what are your orders? Vyaril gritted his teeth. If their weapons were useless, then fighting was not an option. They had to run. But where? The only exit was the crater above, and that led straight into the Galactic Authority's hands. Unless. Vyaril turned to the human. You know something. What is this place? The human smiled. A tomb. Vyril's stomach sank. Liar Va paled. Whose tomb? The human's eyes gleamed. Yours. Escape route. Vril didn't have time to process the meaning of those words. The creatures were advancing. The human finally sighed. I'll show you the way out. But you won't like it. Kelvier snarled. You expect us to trust you? The human shrugged. You expect to survive without me? Vril made a decision. Do it. Liar Va deactivated the restraint field. The human stretched, cracking his neck. Then he walked, walked, calmly, toward the nearest cavern wall. For a split second, Vril thought the man had lost his mind. But then, the human did something impossible. He pressed his palm against the smooth, black stone, and it reacted. Lines of pale blue light snaked outward from his hand, crawling along the cavern walls, revealing intricate patterns and unreadable symbols. A low, ancient hum vibrated through the rock. The creatures stopped. Then, a door opened. The stone wall split apart, revealing a passageway that hadn't existed a moment before. Kelvier's jaw clenched. How? The human stepped aside, gesturing. Run. Vril didn't need to be told twice. Go. The team sprinted into the tunnel. The moment the last of them passed through, the human waved a hand, and the wall sealed shut behind them. For the first time, silence filled the air. Kelvier rounded on the human, weapon raised. What the hell was that? The human didn't even blink. A necessary risk. Vril exhaled, pressing a hand to his wounded side. We're not done. We still have the authority on our backs. The human gave him a sideways look. You think they're the problem? A cold dread curled in Vril's gut. He knew. He knew something they didn't. And whatever it was worse than the authority. The pursuit continues. Vril checked his HUD. Their biosignatures were masked, and the subterranean tunnels shielded them from Galactic Authority scanners, for now. But that wouldn't last. How far does this passage lead? The human walked ahead, casually inspecting the markings on the walls. Long enough to reach a safer exit. But that's not the real question you should be asking. Liar Va narrowed her eyes. Then what is? The human stopped. He turned, his gaze deadly serious. How much do you really want to know? Vril's pulse spiked. This wasn't just about escaping anymore. The deeper they went, the clearer it became. They weren't just running. They were trespassing. In a place never meant to be found. The team has escaped into a hidden underground passage. The creatures did not pursue. Why? The human knows more than he's letting on. And something far worse is waiting ahead. The tunnel stretched into infinity. Vril's boots echoed against the smooth, black stone as he led his team deeper underground. The passage wasn't natural, it was built. The architecture was too precise, the walls covered in intricate glyphs that pulsed with faint blue light. And the human? He walked like he had been here before. Vril didn't trust that. Explain. His voice was low, sharp. How do you know this place? Why did the wall respond to you? The human didn't stop walking. Because this isn't just a cave. Liar Va shot him a glare. We figured that much out already. The human smiled. Then you're ahead of the authority. Congratulations. Kelvier scowled. Enough games. If you have answers, give them. The human exhaled, brushing his fingers against the glowing glyphs. This isn't a tomb. Vril's breath hitched. Then what is it? The human turned to face them. His voice was calm. A warning. A lost civilization. Vyrl studied the glyphs more carefully now. The symbols were ancient, but strangely familiar. They almost resembled pre-expansion records from early interstellar civilizations. Lyervier ran a scanner over them. Her visor flickered with confusion. "Sir, the material these walls are made of? It predates known galactic history." Kelvier stiffened. "Impossible. The authorities' archives are incomplete." The human interrupted. Vyrl's throat tightened. That wasn't just speculation. It was fact. And the only way the human could know that was if he had seen something no one else had. Vyrl's voice dropped to a whisper. "Who are you?" The human didn't answer. Instead, he pointed ahead. "We need to keep moving. We're not alone down here." Lyervier's ears twitched. "More of those creatures?" The human shook his head. "No. Something worse." And just as he said that, the walls shuddered. A deep rumbling filled the tunnel. The glowing glyphs flickered like dying embers. Then, they heard it. A sound that didn't belong to any living thing. A whisper. Not in their ears. In their minds. Vyrl's blood ran cold. Kelvier stumbled back. "What was that?" The human exhaled. "Memories. Trapped here. Echoing." Lyervier's hands clenched into fists. "You're saying this place is alive?" The human's expression darkened. "I'm saying it remembers." And then, the walls opened. The chamber of ghosts. The tunnel led into an impossibly vast chamber. A dome of smooth, polished stone stretched high above them, its surface covered in pulsing veins of blue energy. The air hummed with static. And in the center, a massive structure, half buried in the stone. It looked like a ship, but not like any design in recorded history. Its hull was smooth, seamless, curved in ways that defied engineering logic. Symbols identical to the ones on the walls pulsed across its surface. And worse. Bodies. Not fresh. Not skeletal. Frozen in time. Figures of unknown species stood in place, as if caught mid-motion, their forms preserved in a translucent, glass-like material. Their faces were twisted in expressions of terror. As if they had died in an instant. Lyervier inhaled sharply. What happened to them?" The human approached one of the frozen figures. He traced a hand along the surface of the glass-like substance, his face unreadable. "They weren't supposed to be here either." Vyrl felt something claw at the edges of his mind. A pressure. A weight. The same whispering voice from before. This time, it was clearer. "Turn back." His breathing hitched. He turned to his team, they had heard it too. Kelvier's voice was barely a whisper. "Commander, we need to leave. Now." But the human? He wasn't afraid. He walked straight up to the massive buried structure, and placed his palm against it. And then, everything changed. The truth revealed. A wave of light exploded from the structure. Vyrl was thrown back. His visor overloaded, his body burning as if every nerve was set on fire. And then, the visions began. He saw it. A world that was not his. An empire that predated all known history. A species that was not authority. Not human. Not anything he had ever encountered. And he saw their end. Not by war. Not by disease. By something they awoke. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. Something that couldn't be killed. And then, he saw the human. Standing among them. Not as a prisoner. But as one of them. The vision shattered. Vyrl gasped, his lungs burning as he snapped back to reality. He was on his knees. His team was on the ground, dazed, disoriented. And the human? He stood perfectly still. Watching them. Waiting. Vyrl's heart pounded. He had questions. 1,000 of them. But only one mattered now. He rose to his feet, fists clenched. What are you? The human smiled. But it wasn't a smile of arrogance. Or deception. It was sadness. The last warning you'll ever get. And then, the structure began to open. A deep, guttural sound rumbled through the chamber. Not a voice. Not a machine. Something waking up. Something ancient. Something hungry. Vyrl's stomach dropped. Kelvier staggered to his feet. Sir? Vyrl didn't hesitate. Run. The team bolted for the exit. And behind them, something moved in the dark. Something too large. Too wrong. Something that should not exist. The hunt had begun. The team has uncovered an ancient ship. The human isn't who they thought. The true threat is now awake. And the chase isn't over. The tunnel trembled. Vyrl ran, pushing his body beyond its limits. Behind him, the darkness moved. Something massive. Something hungry. Kelvier stumbled, nearly falling, but Vyrl grabbed his arm and yanked him forward. Keep moving. Lyervier's voice was sharp over the comms. Commander, the path ahead splits. Which way? Vyrl's mind raced. Left or right? The human didn't hesitate. Right. Vyrl barely had time to question it, because behind them, something roared. Not an animal. Not a machine. Something wrong. They took the right tunnel, sprinting into the unknown. The hunt. The walls shook. Vyrl risked a glance behind him. It was following. A formless shadow, shifting and twisting, moving in ways no living thing should. Its surface was a void, swallowing the faint blue light of the glyphs. And the worst part? It wasn't moving fast. It didn't need to. It was toying with them. Vyrl's instincts screamed at him. Every part of him knew, they wouldn't escape if they ran forever. Lyervier's voice was ragged. What is that thing? The human didn't answer. Because he already knew. Kelvier fired his weapon at the creature. The plasma bolt vanished before it even touched the shadow. Kelvier cursed. It absorbed it. Vyrl gritted his teeth. Weapons are useless. Keep moving. They rounded a corner, and the tunnel ended. A sheer drop. Beneath them, an abyss. Above them, the approaching darkness. Lyervier turned, panic flashing in her eyes. We're trapped. Kelvier raised his weapon again. We make our stand. Vyrl hesitated. There had to be another way. And then, the human stepped forward. Towards the abyss. Vyrl's eyes widened. What are you doing? The human turned back. Trust me. And then, he jumped. The leap of faith. Vyrl's heart slammed against his ribs. The human vanished into the abyss. Lyervier's breathing was sharp. Did he? Kelvier cursed. That idiot. Then, a voice echoed from below. It's safe. Jump. Kelvier's jaw clenched. I don't trust this. The shadow moved closer. Vyrl made the call. Jump. One by one, they leapt into the abyss. The Chamber of Secrets. Vyrl hit solid ground. Not an abyss. A platform. The others landed beside him, stumbling but alive. And ahead. Another door. A massive, ancient structure, humming with energy. The human was already standing before it, his hand pressed against the surface. Vyril's breath caught in his throat. The glyphs were responding to him. Kelvia hissed. No more secrets. Tell us what's going on. The human turned. His face was calm. And for the first time, he told them the truth. The truth. This place isn't just ancient. The human's voice was quiet. It's a tomb. Vril stiffened. A tomb for what? The human exhaled. Not for what. For who? The door shuddered. It was opening. Vril's breath hitched. The air changed. The shadow above them stopped moving. It was waiting. The human stepped back as the door revealed. A single figure. Frozen. Encased in the same strange glass-like material as the others. But this time. It wasn't an alien. It was human. Vril's body went cold. Impossible. Kelvia whispered. How? Lyervia's voice trembled. That's not just a human. That's. The human beside them finished her sentence. Me. The paradox. The figure inside the tomb was identical to the human standing before them. Same face. Same build. Same everything. But the records. The material encasing the figure. It was millions of years old. Kelvia's breathing was uneven. You're telling me you've been here before? The human's face darkened. Not just here. He turned to Vril. I've done this before. Vril's chest tightened. What, are you? The human exhaled. The first. The last. And the only one who remembers. The whispering voice returned. This time, it spoke directly to Vril. Close the door. Vril's throat went dry. The human watched him carefully. You need to make a choice. Vril's mind raced. What if this wasn't the first time this had happened? What if this place had been discovered before? What if the human had been here before? And every time, the cycle repeated. Until someone chose differently. The final choice. The shadow above began to descend. It had been waiting for them to open the tomb. Lyervia whispered. Commander, what do we do? Kelvia's grip tightened on his weapon. We fight. But Vril wasn't so sure. He looked at the human. The man who had led them here. The man who had known the truth all along. And he saw it. Regret. Sadness. And hope. The human stepped forward, and placed his hand back on the tomb's door. You have to make the choice, Commander. The shadow loomed closer. The cycle would repeat, or it would end. Vril's hands shook. He could close the door. Seal this place forever. Or he could open it completely. And let whatever had been buried here return. The whispers grew louder. His heart pounded. And then Vril made his choice. The ending, a new beginning. What happened next? No one knows. Because history is rewritten by the choices we make. Maybe Vril sealed the tomb. Maybe he let it open. Maybe the cycle ended. Or maybe it started again. But one thing was certain. The human? He had always been here. And he always would be. Waiting. Watching. And warning those who came after. Because some things were never meant to wake up.